Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week, how to become an overnight success. Okay, apologies for the somewhat clickbaity nature of this video, but rightly or wrongly, I definitely thought this was a topic worth discussing. A few days ago I was listening to BBC Radio to hear Rise Up, Cardinal Black's recent single, getting an airing, and the presenter on that show, Nigel Owens, for any rugby fans out there, made reference to a relatively throwaway comment that I'd made in a recent interview where I called Cardinal Black the oldest new band in the world. Nigel concluding that, if nothing else, we were a pretty good example of perseverance, determination, and how good things can sometimes take time. But I guess from the outside looking in, Cardinal Black seems to have gone pretty well pretty quickly. We launched without any preamble whatsoever, none of the usual coming soon, in May of 2021, and less than a day later, our debut single, Tell Me How It Feels, had topped both the Apple and Amazon rock charts, with our debut EP achieving the same feat only 2 months or so later in July. In August of 2021, we played our first ever show to a sold-out Cardiff Castle with Those Damn Crows to a few thousand people, and it would only be in December of 21 that we would land our first tour, touring with Miles Kennedy, playing what was in reality probably our fourth or fifth show to a capacity Shepherd's Bush empire. Since then, we've toured pretty similarly sized venues with the Struts. We've recorded at Abbey Road Studio 2, probably the most famous studio in the world. Our debut album is coming out at the end of the month. Link down below if you want to pre-order that. We've just kind of come at the end of our first headline tour, which has exceeded all of our wildest dreams in regard to how well that's gone. About 3/4 of the shows have been sold out. And next month, we're on tour with Peter Frampton, culminating in a show at the Royal Albert Hall. Now, that's a pretty mad 15 or 16 or so months for any band, never mind a new band. And as much as it may be nice to perpetuate this idea that we are an overnight success, whatever that is, it would be somewhat disingenuous. Now, for those who first heard us when we released Tell Me How It Feels, I guess that was probably your first experience of hearing the music that myself, Tom and Adam have made. But as you probably guessed already, there is a lot more to it than that. Cardinal Black was born out of the ashes of the Tom Hollister Trio, or TH3, as we kind of monikered ourselves, which was the first proper band that I was in when I was about 18 or 19. The trio was Tom's final year university project and was honestly purely intended as a kind of one-off throwaway gig, which through a weird twist of fate was attended by Steve Winwood, who seemingly enjoyed the gig and asked us to come and record at his Windcraft Studios with his producer and engineer, James Towler. One thing led to another, and before long we were playing major festivals at the likes of Nebworth. We were playing sold-out shows at the Troubadour in London. We were being managed by Guns N' Roses' former manager, Alan Niven. We were signing to a US label. We were spending a lot of time in the US. We had big magazines writing cool features on us. A lot snowballed very quickly, and I guess it's worth considering that I was still in university at the time. I was 18 or 19, and this was very much my first foray into the music industry. But all things told, a lot seemed to be happening very quickly. Now, for one reason or another, it didn't work out, and we split up just before we had a chance to record our debut album. And in hindsight, that whirlwind 2 years very much gave me a false perception or understanding or appreciation of the speed at which things move in the music industry, which, as I've found out in the 10 or so years since, can be excruciatingly bloody slowly.
Take him to church, Christy boy!
Fast forward 10 years of often struggling to make ends meet, playing in innumerable covers bands, wedding bands, function bands, we celebrate any religion for the right price, and original bands like Buck and Evans. In 2020, myself, Tom and Adam decided to get back together again to kind of take a look at some of those old tracks, which at this point had sat on the metaphorical shelf for over a decade. And surprisingly, in rehashing those old songs, new songs started coming, and we decided to relaunch, of course with the addition of Sam Williams on bass, under the new name Cardinal Black, which pretty much brings us up to present day. And thus, an album and a journey which started in 2010 is finally starting to find its feet in 2022, some 12 years later, which I guess is kind of, in a very roundabout way, my point. Success, and however you define that, whether that's financial security, whether it's job satisfaction, or simply having the time to devote energy to something that you love, takes time, takes commitment, takes perseverance, takes sacrifice, takes heartache, takes an underlying confidence that that perseverance will ultimately pay off. We're sold this idea that successful musicians more often than not are an overnight success, and that their superior level of talent makes them rise to the top quicker than the rest, but this is so rarely the case. Sheryl Crow was a back-in singer for over a decade before All I Wanna Do became a hit, and that wasn't until after a year the album that was contained on had been released, while Bill Withers was 32 after spending over a decade in the US Navy and on a factory assembly line before Ain't No Sunshine found success. Chris Stapleton had been a jobbing Nashville songwriter before releasing his first record, and it wasn't until his third album, aged 38, that Andrea Bocelli, one of the biggest selling singers of all time, would achieve any real notable level of commercial success. It would take both Willie Nelson and Bonnie Raitt until they were in their 40s to achieve recognition, whilst piano legend Thelonious Monk, played with the likes of Coltrane and Miles Davis, didn't achieve success in his own right until he was 46, and Leonard Cohen had turned 50 by the time that the covers of Hallelujah by the likes of John Cale and Jeff Buckley would finally turn attention onto its writer. Tom Petty had to famously declare himself bankrupt at the age of 29 to get himself out of a terrible label deal, whilst Louis Armstrong wouldn't release his most commercially successful work until he was 64. Now, if there is an underlying theme, one of these incredibly successful artists that I've just named, it's that being an overnight success probably takes about 10 years. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching Friday Fretworks. As I said, the pre-order link for Cardinal Black's debut record is down in the description box. If you want to check that out, it would mean a hell of a lot. And I shall see you next week for another episode of Friday Fretworks. Cheers, guys. Take care. See you soon.